What's up guys, Shawnthebro here. Today we're going to be looking at how to make objects go on a track, so essentially like train or minecart on railroad tracks, something like that. This is a video for Barry Allen. He requested this. Blueprint only if possible, so that's what we're doing. Basically we're going to be using a spline to make an object go around a track, and then we're going to attach our camera to its position at all times. And you could technically just make your player attached to it and this would work. However, I specifically chose to add a camera to it because I would like to be able to potentially change the view in the future, like first person, third person, whatever. So I just wanted to show you how to attach a camera to it, because then you can kind of get the gist of how to do that. Alright, so basically we're going to set up this using so if you go to a new project, this one was requested blueprint only, as are a lot of the individual requests for videos, so we will do that. Blueprint, I chose first person, but that's actually just because I had one made already. This is the same one where I did the RE2 HUD and the slow camera, so you can actually choose anything, but just make sure that you do have a character that's created already, even if it's not a template one, like this first person character here. So I did not make this. This comes from the first person character class, so I still have that character in there and all that. We're gonna do some stuff in there, but not a big deal, just showing you kind of where I started in case you're starting from a blank project. And okay, so we'll get started. I did make a folder called train. Everything will be inside of it except for the first person character. Alright, so let's start out let's start with the train and the tracks themselves. So essentially they're both blueprint classes that don't really derive off anything. So you can just add new and do blueprint class. Call one, make them both off actor. So go actor. And I didn't actually mean to make another one. Delete. But yeah, just make them both off actor, one train, one track. So on the train, we'll start with that. I added a cube. So if you need to do that, just add component, static mesh. Then you can change the static mesh to the cube. I chose an element so I can see it. Walnut, great, excellent. Here we go. So now that we have something to represent our train, what we're going to do is essentially set up a spline and a timeline to be able to make this work. Okay, so this is something you won't have seen before in the tutorial, so at least the ones that we've done. So if you're not familiar with it, that's okay. What we're going to do is have a spline, which I'll show you right now. So this is the track. Again, add component. You can add something called a spline. You can also do a spline mesh, but for right now we're just doing a spline. And then I still added a plane just so we could represent it. There is a way in the construction script to make it so as you drag out this spline, it fills the mesh in, which would look better, but we're not going to get into that today. A, because it's a bit complicated for this, and B, because it's something I'm more comfortable doing in code, and I don't want to give you guys a bad practice in Blueprint. So if you guys want to see that, I can do some research and come up with a video, just let me know. But if you don't care, here's the spline. I added a plane and attached, some random material to it. And what a spline is it's this track, right? So when you are to drag one in, and I'll drag a different one in so you guys can see. Okay, when I drag this in, you can see I've got my mesh on it, and I've also got a point here. Let me drag it all the way out here, so you can see there's also this white dot here. You can actually drag off of this and extend the spline, and you can kind of shape it how you want. So you see, okay, that looks good, right? Then I can grab this other point and rotate it, and then there I have this crazy shape, and I can add a different spline point here and move it all around, and I get like this crazy weird shape, right? But you can use this to drag it into a track like I've done here. So this is a complete loop. If I could click on it, it's a complete loop. You can see my spline points used to make it. So the reason I'm showing you that is this is how you're going to be creating your track for today. Now there's two ways that you could do this. One could be you literally make your tracks and you put on like a railroad mesh and it just goes on its own, and great, excellent. Or like in Minecraft or something like that, where they are building the track, when they place the object down, you'll need to see if it's connected to another piece and then connect the splines. We're not going to get into that today. Again, that's more complicated. That I could definitely show you in Coder Blueprint, but we're just doing a basic spline tutorial. So, alright, so let's get into it. There's only two real things that are going to be the bulk load of the work, and it's the train and the controls to speed up and slow down the train, because I've included them as well. The rest of the stuff is pretty much empty, actually, so there's a little bit in the camera. Anyway, so in your train actor, what we're going to do is we're going to go across this spline and perform logic based on how far we are. That makes sense, right? So I chose to do it in tick. There's not really, in my opinion, a great way to do this that's not in tick, because you need to constantly be updating your position. There are technically ways you could do it where you could only update it when the player is looking at it, and you know, things like that. But honestly, who cares, right? It's just a basic tutorial. So go ahead and throw it on tick. If it's not already there, just type in tick right there. What we're going to do is we're going to make a timeline. So you can do create new, or create timeline. Timeline. There we go. Add timeline. Sorry. Add timeline. If I could remember, some of them are create new, some of them are add. You never know. Okay, add timeline. And I've already done it. But once you do it, it'll be in this components tab. I did not make this. This automatically happens. Call it whatever you want. I call it train timeline. It'll show up like this when you drag it in, right? So this is the train timeline that gets created. So I'm just going to show you that, because this is kind of different from what you'd expect, because if you were to drag this in, you'll just get timeline. But when you're adding the timeline, you'll actually come up with this huge thing right here. Okay? So you want that node, but then we also want our variable so we can reference this timeline that we just made. Alright, so basically this has a bunch of nodes that control, or a bunch of inputs and outputs that control what's going to happen, right? So play is pretty obvious. It just, you know, continues the timeline. Play from start restarts the timeline. Stop, you know, maybe going backwards from the ending point. Set a new point at which you want to start. Update is what happens as, you know, things change. Finished is when you've completed your trip, completed your timeline. And this is the progress we have complete. So right now, I can't remember if by default you have anything there. You might not. I'll show you how to get something in there. So go to your train timeline, double click it. You'll actually get this little window. You might have to zoom out a bit. And you can just add points, right? So you can call it whatever. So you can make this a length of 10 for all I care. Doesn't matter, right? This just shows you how long the timeline can go on for. You see it's a huge track, and oh wow, it goes all the way over there. But what this essentially does is it allows you to kind of control where these points are going to be in the timeline. So for the train timeline, what this is essentially just a graph to show you the progress, whether it's linear, exponential, whatever. You can make your graph here to kind of change how the timeline is going to affect the object over time. For us, I'm going to keep it the same speed. I mean, we can change the speed of the train manually, but in terms of the timeline, it should just go at a constant rate. So what you can do is right-click and add key to curve float if you want, and kind of play around with it. You don't have to. Just make sure you have 1. Otherwise, it'll be at 0 and you won't be moving. But go ahead and add something. There you go. Make sure you just set your length to some value. It doesn't really matter. Like, you could set it to 1. This just determines how long it's going to go for, though. So make sure it's long enough for what you're doing. So if I have points here, I want to make sure that I have a length of at least, 1. Can I delete this? There we go. So there you go. You can see that this is a linear graph, 1 to 1. See, 1 right here and 1 right here. So this, again, it just changes how basically your object is going to react to that timeline. So this is a linear. I mean, it's technically a bit off because I'm at like 1.01 and 1, but you see what I'm going for, right? So put this wherever you want. Just make sure you have a point in there so you're not at 0. Save it. You can rename this guy right here. I don't know what to call this. I was trying to think. But this it's literally just called the track name. I called it progress because they say it's the track name. I disagree, right? This is basically the result of where you are along this timeline. So when I renamed it, well, I renamed it to progress because this is basically how far along you are. So progress, percent complete, whatever. You see I called it percent track complete here. It doesn't matter. Just know that this is how far along you are. Okay, now that we have the timeline down, the rest should be pretty easy. Get your reference to your train timeline right here and set the play rate. Now, make some variables. We're going to make one, well, we can make them all right here. Let's make one to is train active. It's a Boolean. This basically means if the train is on or off. This can help you disable it so that the train does not move at all. Now, I don't move it here. I don't use it here, but it'd be very simple. You could do a check on tick if this is active. If it's false, stop it. And then if it goes back to true, just play. Very simple. I would recommend exposing it so you can click it in the editor on the fly. That makes it so you can click on something in here when you've selected an object. Here it is. Yeah, you can see is train active. I set it to true. Okay, so total time to complete and percent track complete are two variables we can make. The total time to complete is going to be used here. So essentially, if we do 1 divided by the total time to complete, and our total time to complete is like 20 seconds, this sets our play rate, right? So the play rate is looking for a value of like 0 to 1. Basically, 1 would be instant, and 0 would be like it's not moving at all. So we want a value in between there. So 1 divided by 20 gets us the value that it would take to occur for 20 seconds for us to be able to complete the track. So set the total time to complete to whatever default value you want. Whoops. But you can change this to fit the track, change this to fit the speed of the train, all that stuff. Set your play rate with it. Alright. Then, on update of the timeline, we want to set our percent track complete to the progress variable, which is what we made in the timeline. It's this thing right here. Alright, then we're going to do something just to get the location and the rotation along the spline. This is what will allow us to turn and things like that. So, if we get our reference and get the spline, remember if you made the track already, the spline is right here. So get your track reference, oh yeah, and sorry if I didn't explain this. Make sure you make a track reference, just add a variable, go to your variable type, and type in whatever your track is called. So I called mine, I think literally track. Yeah, right here, track, and just get an object reference to it. That's what this is. Okay? Alright, and then if you make it visible, like I have here, if you expose it, then when you're in the editor, in the map here, you can click on the little eyedropper tool and click on your track reference right here, and you'll see it sets it for you. That's an easy way to set it. Alright, so get your track, get your spline, do something called get spline length, which gets the entire length of the spline, and then we get percent track complete, which is, remember, how far along we are here. So this is saying, this is the full length of the spline, this is how far along the spline we are, and when you lerp, remember it's going between the 2 points. So from the start to the end, we're at this position. We want to get the location at this position along this line and get the rotation at this position along this line. Okay, so to do that, just drag off your lerp value. It's literally get location. I was trying to see if it would pop up, but anyway, drag off your spline, get location at distance along spline, and then get rotation at distance along spline. Both of these. Then all you got to do is set actor location and rotation, and drag in your location to the location, your rotation to the rotation. Makes pretty pretty easy sense. Make sure this is set to world and not local, otherwise it would be local to this component, which isn't necessarily what you want, especially in the case where you're using a spline. That, well, you're always going to be facing the same direction and always going to be going the same way. You need to be on the spline. Okay, and with that you have a train that won't actually do anything yet, right? Because we haven't set up you haven't made the spline. If you did make the spline, then you can attach it, and it'll start going already. But we're going to make it even better. And we're going to attach a camera so you can have a first-person view. Just another thing, you don't have to do this. If you want to loop the track or loop the vehicle going on the train, or excuse me, going on the tracks, then when you're finished, you can call... So I just added a custom event. Oops, add custom event right here. When you do it, you rename it whatever you want. I called it finish track. When finish track is called, play from start, so restart it. And we only call this when the timeline is finished, so when we reach the end. It's an infinite loop for that guy, but it's a good way to keep it going forever. Remember, you can use this is train active or is train on boolean for pretty much anything you need to actually turn it off or turn it on again. You'll see in the track itself, I don't do any logic. It's literally just this spline and this plane so you guys can visualize it. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this because you don't need to see it anymore. You don't need to see the train anymore, so we'll get rid of that. Okay, last things we need are to set the controls for speeding up and slowing down the train and then attaching the camera. I'll show you attaching the camera first because you might not care about slowing down the train or speeding up the train. So here we go. I also did this on tick because, again, it's always updating. What we're going to do is we're going to make a new component and we're going to make it a camera actor class. Okay, so just add a new blueprint class. Type in camera actor right here. Once you select him, call it whatever you want and call it train camera. In event tick, again, just search for it if it's not there by default. What we're going to do is we're going to set our location and our rotation. So to do that, all we need is our vehicle reference. So do this the same way you set the track reference. Make a new variable, look for the type, and look for the vehicle that you have. I called mine not train. I want track, or excuse me, not track, train. Here we go, train, object reference. I called it vehicle reference because, again, this could be a minecart or something else, but you know, we're going for the actual train here. So in our vehicle reference now, what we can do is just put it in here. Again, you can expose this, so you can just set it in, I think it's this one. Here it is. So when you go to your camera, if I could see the whole window, here we go. Now you can just set the vehicle reference right here. You see it's train. Just use the eyedropper. Oh, clicked on my train. Now I actually don't know where my train was this time. He like fell under. That might be him down there. I don't know. But anyway, if you can find your train box wherever you put it, wherever you spawned him into the scene, then just go ahead and click on him. Obviously, you can use this to search for him and just be like, oh, he's right here. But yeah, it would have been smarter for me to put him closer. But anyway, once your vehicle reference is set, just drag off, get actor location, get actor rotation. You see I do them both here. And then just set actor location, set actor rotation with your rotation and location plugged in. This will set the actor location and rotation for the camera. So all the camera is doing is literally, there you go. Now it's like, oh, the train is here, so I'm going to attach the camera here and allow it to drive. So what you can do to make it so the camera actually switches to the first person character view of the train or the vehicle you're in is to go into your level blueprint or wherever you did decide to put it. Go ahead and right click and you'll be able to do something called create a reference to, and it'll be your train camera. Now the reason I don't have that is because for whatever reason, when I am to do it the first time, I can never get it to pop up again. And I'm not sure what the solution for that is, otherwise I'd show you. But basically, if you go to your top here it'll say create a reference to train camera, just like I have create a reference to first person character here. So you just right click and it'll create this train camera from persistent level. That's a reference to the camera you have in the level, in the scene. You can get your player controller. Again, it's single player. We know this is us. From the excuse me, from the camera, set view, or nope, cannot do it that way. Set view. I can't actually. Okay, so just take off context sensitive. Set view target with blend right here. So your camera is your new view target, and your target is your player controller. Now that's done, what it'll do is it'll actually set the view target to be the new camera that we have. So now you shouldn't be looking at your character anymore. You should be looking at the train. So lastly, what we want to do is be able to speed up and slow down the train, either at a button press or holding or whatever. I just did a button press because it's very easy to showcase, but you can take this and modify it however you want. To do this, we're going to need some keys that we want to actually go to use. So go to Edit, Project Settings, Input. I may just add 2 new action mappings, or you could do axis mappings depending on how you're doing it. I added action mappings, called them slow down vehicle, speed up vehicle. I just was like, okay, what keys? Key and L, or K and L, you know. Weird key choices, but literally does not matter. So once you've made these 2 and assigned bindings to them, go into your character, your first person character if you're using the template or whatever your BP character is. Catch the input essentially, so just type in input action. Whoops, input action. And then slow down vehicle, speed up vehicle, as I've done here. So whatever you called your inputs on the previous screen. When you press it, we're going to do our logic. And our logic is we're going to need a vehicle reference. Okay, so add another variable. We've already done this before. Set this to be the train type object reference. We're going to grab our total time to complete. And if we're slowing down the vehicle, we're going to extend the total time to complete. We're going to add to it, right? We're slowing down. It's going to take us longer to reach our destination. So we're adding 1 to it every time we press this. You could add more. You could do it while you're holding it, whatever. I do a clamp because if this value goes below 0, or goes to 0 or below, or the max goes too high, then you'll either never get there, or you'll you actually start going backwards because you start going to negatives and weird things like that. So I add a clamp to this to make sure it can't go any lower than 2 and doesn't go any higher than 30. That's what that does. And then just take the return value, set it to the new total time to complete of the vehicle reference. So see, we're taking the time, adding 1 to it, making sure it's within the valid parameters, and then setting it again. I also have a print string, so I'll show you what these do. Then, in speed up, we do the exact opposite. We subtract it from the total time to complete, because the total time to complete will get shorter as the train goes faster. And I should actually change this to 2. Whoops. There we go. Not that it matters, because this will only really occur one direction or the other, right? Like if I'm speeding up, I only have to worry about the min. If I'm slowing down, I only have to worry about the max. And then set total time to complete again. I'll show you both of these. That way you can see. So right now, when we start out, if I press L, okay, it's going to take 19 seconds. 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12. And then as we get there, you see every time I press it, I can't go any faster, so we're good. But see, we're going so fast now, and we're screwing up our view a bit. But you can slow down, and then you are good. And then we can slow down all the way to 30. So now we are insanely slow. We're in a nice peaceful ride. And it will jerk at some of the turns since we're just doing a set actor as opposed to a look at function. But I think for the purposes of this, that is perfectly fine. And there you go. So now we have a train or a minecart or whatever vehicle on tracks. You can also speed up and slow down the vehicle at your will. Now that we've set up the new camera, you kind of see how you can change between different cameras, how you could add different components to them, like a first person, a third person view, anything like that. And that should pretty much explain how to handle a vehicle on tracks. So thank you, Barry Allen, for this excellent idea. Hope you guys enjoyed as well. I hope it helped you. If it did, most important thing you can do for this channel is subscribe. Helps me out, and it helps me know what videos you guys are interested in so I can make more of those. So appreciate that. If you do have any questions or any issues with this tutorial, feel free to join the Discord. I'll be happy to help you. And not only will I be happy to help you, but there's 88 members now who will be willing to help you as well. Most of them have experience with art or coding or something like that. So there's a very diverse community there willing to help. Alright guys, and lastly, if you'd like to come chill with us and play some games in this wonderful community, you can come check us out on Shawnthebro 27 on Twitch. We do Dark Souls Wednesday, Resident Evil Friday, and then Saturday is usually a fun multiplayer game, or just kind of like a random day where we play something fun. So anyway guys, that's all I got for you today. Yeah. So I'm Shawnthebro, and I'll see you in the next one.